what caused so much of the polarization we have now was granting women suffrage, because it took the vote, like you said, away from the household, and it allowed both spouses to pursue their more maybe partisan or ideological proclivities and, you know, things like that. But it is ultimately the fault of men.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Red Top Report. I'm your host, Joe Enders, and I'm yelling into the microphone like I usually do, but not for the reason that you think I am. I have a very, very special guest. I'm talking about the host of his own show, Heck Off Commie. I'm talking about the man who called out those drag queens at a drag queen event just like we did. John Doyle, welcome to the Red Top.
Do you want that same like YouTuber energy out of me? Like that same like, let's hit the subscribe button, ring the bell. Okay.
Yes. We'll do that. We'll do that at the end. Maybe we can do a double give us your money at the end, Ronan. Or we could just do it right now. You need to give us your money.
You need to give us your money. If you don't, bad things are going to happen to you. We have your IP address.
Money!
I'm listening.
And you can give us your money by going to buymeacoffee.com. You can do a one-time single donation, or you can do a monthly Joe for just $5 a month.
I'm here to talk to John about a very, very important question. We recently saw those two stats that came out, right? The ones about how men, like in 12th grade, well, I guess boys, I don't know. Some are men, some are boys. In 12th grade boys, they're more conservative. They're just growing exponentially in being conservative. And then women are growing exponentially in being liberal. So what do you think about those numbers?
I think they reflect a trend that we've seen for pretty much like the entirety of world history. I mean, women are going to be governed more by emotional thinking, men by more rational faculties. And maybe there was a time, say 15 years ago, where, you know, all of the opinion curating institutions were controlled by the left, and they were making the predominant public opinion more liberal, but not to the point where men are really going to have an issue with it. They're like, okay, yeah, maybe we should help poor people. Maybe we should be nicer to immigrants or what have you. But now it's getting to a point where, like, to go along with what is considered the normal opinion requires you as a man to be very debased, very humiliated, especially if you're a young white man. And I think that it's probably getting to a point where guys are just like, no, I want to laugh at stuff. I want to be normal. I'm going to reject a lot of this. And that's probably what you're seeing. But conversely, with women, as the propaganda continues to, you know, proliferate throughout society, it's all virtually emotionally governed. There's no sort of substance or empiricism behind it. It's all just like, this sounds good, therefore it must be true. And I think you're seeing this like very sort of bimodal distribution as reflected by the data, where men are becoming, as you said, more conservative, women are becoming more liberal, and someone's going to have to win. Hopefully it's the boys. You know, they have like the state on their side, but we have the boys on our side.
We got the boys, and we also have Saturday nights, so we can figure out all these problems if we need to. Now, what I think is really interesting about this is that what seems to be like really, really gripping the men when it comes to like content on social media, what's really getting them into the, you know, more of a masculinity style thing. Like there's this gigantic secular masculinity movement going on. You know, your Andrew Tates, your Pearl, your people like that try to approach masculinity from this very secular and scientific perspective. There's also this Christian masculinity movement that's coming up as well. You're obviously involved. You know, you got Sovereign Bras, Chase from whatever.
Yeah.
Those guys coming up and preaching a more Christian version of it. Now, you have both of those different sects, but I think they all have one thing in common. They seem all about rejecting feminism and kind of embracing a more domestic lifestyle.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. And the problem with some of the more like red pill type masculinities is they're sort of amoral. They don't really make a claim to any specific kind of morality. They simply say like, you know, do the right thing, be virtuous. And it's like, okay, well, how is that defined? That's actually a very important part of it. That being said, I do think that the sort of like second wave with guys like Andrew Tate is better than like the first wave red pillars. Andrew Tate strikes me as like more sincere than a lot of those like first wave red pillars were. Like these are guys who would tell you like, oh, the best way to be a high value man is like get a vasectomy and then it's like
the big towel guys.
Yeah, and so I think that's very harmful. But Andrew Tate has seemed to like have struck a chord with like a generation of young men who just want to be told like it's okay to strive for excellence. It's okay to like want to be the best version of yourself. And why it's important to have the Christian side of that is because Christians, I think, are bad at messaging, especially with things like masculinity. Like we're bad at being like, hey, you know, we have a lot of really cool stories and a lot of really great history about like Christian men fighting off those evil forces, standing up against evil, wielding power for good, things like that. Because I think as a man, you're like biggest impulse really is to like impose yourself on the world in whatever capacity. And the Christian tradition is very rich with that. I mean, that's why like most of the world is Christian, because we have done that and we just haven't for so long that now our societies are becoming very weak and very secular.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summation of the red pill movement. I think where a lot of people lose them, and I think it is beyond just not defining the virtue, but it's actually saying it seems to me like it's kind of like, how do I put it? The feminists, the feminists will say, yeah, I'm a feminist, but I don't like I'm okay with mothers, like I'm okay with that.
Right.
It's kind of I see a lot of these red pill people that are like, oh well, yeah, no, I'm not like those people. I kind of think it's okay to maybe have a couple wives. I maybe think it's okay to say this, use a woman or something like that for sex, or fornicate, or that you shouldn't fornicate, but it's kind of just a personal excess that I have, so it's kind of just the way that I do things. And I feel like there's a real lacking of like a true initiative for sexual morality, specifically in like in the secular aspects of the red pill movement. And then on the other side, obviously, and this kind of I want to get into this with the statistics that we're seeing, it's that women specifically on the other side, they attack me for even saying that red pill has any credence at all whatsoever in any capacity in any way, all because they say all you're doing is fomenting division among the sexes, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, I hope you know this, and you could go look at that chart too if you want to see it, of the women. Women have becoming more liberal for a very long time. This isn't something that's new. They're going on the same trend that they always have. What's changing is that men are going from a relatively flat curve to shooting up in conservatism.
Right.
So what do you think happened with women here? What's going on? What's wrong with women, John?
I don't know. Well, that's why I will never attack Andrew Tate. Like, to that point, it's like, I don't think he's like the best role model for young men, but it's like, what's the alternative? Like, show me somebody, and we are building up alternatives, but show me somebody who has like the cultural impact that he's had. And he's got some pretty bad takes. Maybe his past is a little bit shady, to put it lightly. But fundamentally, if you look at like his average impact on a person who's seen his content, it pushes them in a more positive direction. And that is going to make people, better, in their households, in their communities, or, even in their workplace or their church. And I think that's very important. So a lot of that backlash you see from like the women, even who don't claim to be feminists, it's just because they want to police male behavior.
Yeah.
Like, they are angry because Andrew Tate's saying like, hot girls this, hot girls that. Most people are seeing, he's playing a character. Like, most people are not watching that and being like, so true, I want to have a harem. But they are attracted to his message about just simply like not being stepped on by the world around you. But in terms of what's wrong with women, oh man, I think this is just their nature. I think that when society devolves to such a point where we no longer impose sort of, we'll say, comforting barriers on their temperament and behavior, things like that, their role in society, this is like inevitably what's going to happen. I think it's actually a form of like God punishing us for abandoning his word.
There's a lot to be said there. And here's the thing, like you said, with just to go a little bit more into the Andrew Tate thing, just as a side note, the man was involved in pornography, and I already know your opinion on this. It's just like, look, in a perfect world, we'd throw both of them in jail, and for the things that they had, and I get that. Like, we want to ban pornography. Catechism says that we have to throw pornography. We have to throw porn. There has to be some sort of civil punishment for doing pornography. And I want that for them. But I've even said this in other videos about them. That's not going to happen. What they did is technically legal because we live in a Western degenerate piece of garbage culture.
Yeah.
And because of that, all that they can do at this point, I've said this across the board, they need to, one, apologize for what they did and own that action, take some accountability for it. And then second of all, the thing that I definitely believe that they're going to need to do is start using some of that money that they made from that to help get guys away from pornography, to get them to stop using pornography, not necessarily just talking about how you shouldn't do pornography. And once they do that, I've said this on air several times, guys. You can go check my Twitter. You can check the episodes of Red Top. Ronan, you know this as well. We're cool if that happens. We're cool with them. And there is a sense though where I get what you're saying, like. Why are we wasting our time doing that when these are the other people that we're dealing with? This is the other mountain that we have, and these people that literally don't want male spaces to exist at all, anywhere, at any time. They want to foment this idea that everything that's wrong with the world is because of a lack of male leadership, and not because in any capacity of a lack of female accountability.
Exactly, and that's the thing too, is like, anytime anything good has been done, it's been because a bunch of men get together and they just talk. And society has done everything possible to erode male spaces and distract them with, worldly things, with women, things like that. So insofar as Andrew Tate is like getting us back towards that old model, if that comes to fruition, that's ultimately going to be good, because it's not like you're going to get like, say, 1,000 high school age boys who used to be like soy boys. Now they're more masculine. You get those guys together. It's not like they're going to be like, okay, how do we install communism, but now like more epically and masculine? Like it has to be towards a more natural and virtuous form of the world, even if it's, catching their attention immediately because it's like, ooh, Lamborghinis and hot women.
Yeah.
Like eventually they're going to grow out of that, because that's the cycle. I mean, you're a teenager, you're like, wow, that sounds great. But you keep watching that content, get to be in your early 20s, into your 30s, you're going to realize, okay, that's immature. That's not what the world's really about. That doesn't actually make you happier. It's just like different levels of pleasure. It's like, okay, I was smoking weed, playing Xbox. Now I'm doing coke and I'm going on a date with a Victoria's Secret angel. It's like, it's still chasing that same dragon.
This is the message that I think that I got into an argument with somebody about this, and that was exactly what I said to this person. I was like, you don't seem to think that women as a voting bloc, I'm not saying all women, obviously, there was actually a huge opposition to all this. Women and women's movements are largely, political movements are largely responsible for essentially every single policy that went to destroy the family. Women voters as a bloc chose themselves over their own families as soon as they got as soon as they were able to move forward with women's suffrage, and then later on contraception, no fault divorce, then abortion, then gay marriage, then transgenderism, then all these things, because they're choosing their agency and their appearances and their desires over the actual well-being of the civilization itself. Right. And it's because inherently from our Enlightenment values, they took a perverted view of that at the beginning of the country, which was that the building block of society is the individual, and it's not actually, as the Catholic Church preaches, the family.
Right. Yeah, and that's even like an uncontroversial argument in, the political science community. Like what caused so much of the polarization we have now was granting women suffrage, because it took the vote, like you said, away from the household, and it allowed both spouses to pursue their more maybe partisan or ideological proclivities and, things like that. But it is ultimately the fault of men for getting us in it. Because that's the thing, you can't really hold them to a double standard because they're not like us. They're made to sort of do things like this. And it's very helpful when you're trying to nurture a child or, create a home for a family. But then you scale that to all of society and then it doesn't work out so well.
Yeah.
So
it's like the whole prosecuting women for abortions argument is kind of what I say. There needs to be some sort of thing that allows us to return to an age of accountability. And this is why I've unashamedly said several times on the show, Ronan, you know this as well, that I am not a libertarian. I'm an authoritarian. I believe that we need to have an authority. There needs to be some coercive, power of the state to tell people, no, you can't kill your children. No, this is not what marriage is. No, you are not a man if you are born a woman. Right. No, you are not a woman if you are born a man. And there has to be some sort of moral standard. And if we look back all the way to the Declaration of Independence, this was a Christian nation. So why is this so hard for people to understand?
They're just too distracted. They're on Pleasure Island. They would much rather just like sit in their recliners and watch TikTok than actually do anything. That's why, the things that get people so excited are like talking about like murdering politicians. Like people will just be like, oh, we're going to have a revolution. It's like, you don't even go to church.
Boys.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Those people, do you remember in the Summer of Love 3 years ago when they were rioting in Minneapolis because of George Floyd? And the Boogaloo Boys showed up and they've got their plate carriers and they've got their guns. And all of a sudden they were like, wait a minute, this is real. We're actually going to have to like get into it. I don't want to do that. And so they started marching alongside the BLM rioters, and it's because we share an anti-police sentiment. It's like, now I saw the looks on your faces. You were confused and you balked. You were scared because then it became real. It's like, wait a minute. If I'm actually going to like protect my community, I'm going to have to start like mowing down rioters. I don't want to do that. I have to work at GameStop tomorrow. So I'm just going to like march alongside them and pretend like we have like one unified cause. And it's just like the most cringeworthy thing.
Yeah, well, shout out to the one guy who actually did defend himself. I'm not going to say his name on here because I want to stay on YouTube, but you already know the deal.
It was in Texas, right?
In Texas? No, we're talking about in Minneapolis, right?
Oh, Kenosha.
Kenosha.
Our boy. Yes.
Our boy. Yes, our boy. Did I say Minnie? Yeah, that's right. And that you actually bring up a good topic, because the Boogaloo Boys, I think, are a perfect example of the other problem with our culture right now, which I'm hoping is self-correcting, and the stat looks like it's like, okay, maybe we're self-correcting. Maybe nature is taking its course, and the human universal that is patriarchy. And I say that like, obviously, it is a human universal. Find me female-dominated societies across the earth. You won't find one.
Right.
And it seems like men have been and are. They're all talk. There's no game. There's no action. There's no anything. Even in the Catholic circles, you'll see people. You went up to drag queens when they were in your town. You brought a megaphone. You walked up to them and you told them what was up.
Yeah. And
that was really good. I don't see other men doing that. I see a lot of people saying, "Oh, if we just pray, it'll eventually go away. We'll eventually fix it." I see, I'm not really that type. I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Yeah.
All these different aspects of this. There's just this neutered culture among men right now where they want to be that person, but they're just not, and they're not even trying to be.
Yeah, and that was actually really disheartening because the biggest backlash I received from that wasn't even from Antifa. It was from Christians. They were like trying to police my behavior. Like I had a Catholic group who were like, "Why did you do that? You should have just came over and prayed the rosary with us." And I was like, maybe, yeah, which I did, by the way, after anyways. Like I walked away and I was with them.
That's nonsense.
And then there was this Christian podcast who I guess had covered it. And then the day after they reached out to me and they wanted to have me on. So I go on. And I didn't understand until about 5 minutes into it, but it was like a total ambush. And they were trying to like berate me for my conduct, saying it was unchristlike. And then they were like, "Well, why didn't you just read scripture?" And I was like, "Well, I thought that it was important to, describe what they're trying to do to their children in like very accurate, explicit terms." "Oh, so you're saying that what you could say is more powerful than the word of God? That's what you're saying?" And I'm like, no. And then I'm like, you know what? Anytime I have any problem, I'm just going to pull out my pocket New Testament. I'm just going to start reading the Bible. Because that's what better solution could there be? If I'm like fighting a traffic ticket, I'm just going to like read from John or something. Because am I really suggesting that my words would be better than the word of God? Like that was the argument they were trying to make. And that was actually the most hostile interview to this day that I've ever done. It made me so angry.
Oh my gosh, really? I didn't even know that had happened. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I didn't share it because of that. But
you want to know the funniest thing about that? Is they don't even get it. They don't understand their prayer. The reason that you went out and did that, the reason you had that inspiration, the reason the Holy Spirit whispered in your ear and said, "Go out and fight," was because of all those rosaries that they were praying. That's the whole point of prayer, is that, when people are out there praying, the prayer is to provoke action. It's to provoke reasonable change in the temporal world by temporal human beings in almost every single case. So there's all this backlash that they're seeing right now that they're too cowardly to engage in because they're too busy only focusing on their rosaries and not actually interested in playing an active role in evangelization, an active role in the spreading of the gospel, the truth of the faith.
Yep.
Even natural law itself, they're not interested in that because they want to think that what they're doing is enough and it's something that they can't be criticized for. And that, I think, is the real danger here. And that's what men seem really afraid about. That's why you see all the accounts on Twitter, they're all anonymous, because the apparatus that we have right now running the country is literally going to punish you if you stand out.
Yeah, like we're already dealing with enough on the female end. I don't need men policing my behavior, let alone like other Christian men. And they were trying to, because I told them, because they were like, "Well, in your videos on YouTube, why don't you just talk about God all the time?" I was like, well, my thinking is if I can cast a wide net by talking about, daily news, political issues, and then 10% of the time I tie it into a more Christian angle, I think over time I'll be bringing more people to the church. "Oh, we get it. We get it. You got the views." So that was an actual thing this black guy said to me. He was like, "We get it. You're Mr. View Count." And I was like, that's not even what I was saying. Like they kept trying to like cast me as this villain or something.
Was that at the HBCUs?
No, that was the same Christian podcast.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
what was the Christian podcast? I mean, you don't have to say it if you don't want to start.
I don't remember the name exactly, but the problem is there's like 5 of them that all sound like it was the same.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not sure which one specifically.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
I hope they see this. And they also tried to grill me on Catholicism too. And they were like, "Bro, like Mary can't hear you, bro." And I was like, "Why are we doing this? Can we talk about like trannies, please? Like, can we do that?" Like we've been rehashing this debate for 400 years. Can we just talk about
Chief
trannies?
Apologist John Doyle whips out the Catholic answers in the middle of the interview and just starts reading.
Yeah.
Shout out to Michael Lofton, by the way. He's great. But yeah, it's I find it very interesting that Christians are the Christian men specifically are the ones that have the biggest problem, because they think that if you're adversarial towards something, that for some reason you're lacking charity. And what they don't seem to realize is that there's two different types of people. There are people of goodwill. Those people of goodwill, when you're trying to evangelize those people, you need to approach them with kindness, with wisdom, with logic, with understanding, and all those other things. Then there's the other people. Then there's the drag queens. Then there's the trannies. Then there's the people that utterly hate your guts and want to put your head, Jesus's head, and everything else on a pike in their front lawn while they hail Satan inside. Those are the people I like to call obstinate people, obstinate heretics, obstinate blasphemers. Those people are so filled with pride that there is not a chance for them to love God without being utterly defeated, without being utterly humbled in a magnificent way. And once that humility comes to them through defeat, that is when they're able to actually go out and have that conversion moment, that road to Damascus moment that Paul would have had.
Right.
And it seems to me like Christian, that idea is lost on Christian men, that spiritual warfare idea, that idea that defeating your enemy can convert your enemy.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You have to be smart about it. Like that event that we did, the footage from that event was everywhere. I mean, it sparked legislation in different states, Texas as well. It was on virtually every major news outlet, whether alt media, legacy media, Tucker Carlson had it. I mean, this footage got hundreds of millions of views. And now that phenomenon is cemented into the consciousness of the people, and it's moving away from that in terms of public opinion because of that event. So if I had just gone and, prayed with everybody else, maybe, God would have figured out another way. But I'm not going to apologize for what I did because it seemed to work.
Well, let me tell you, you did nothing wrong. And from a Catholic perspective, you did something great. You started a movement. In fact, you're actually the one, and I've said this on air. You're the one that inspired me to go to that one over in Royal Oak.
Yes.
And do my own little thing on that, because I was like, you know what? We and Ronan talked about this. We were like, this is happening right at our doorstep. Can I actually sit here and do this podcast knowing that that's going on? The answer was no. I have to go there. I have to say something. So and that's what I'm saying. And you probably inspired a lot more people than just me to go out and do that, by the way.
I hope so.
Yeah, and that is the answer to those so-called charitable Christians' prayers. And now I want to kind of switch gears, because there's this giant question going on right now about who do we need to vote for come 2024. And I know that you've actually been a pretty big advocate for this. I've held for the longest time, and I've held this on the show as well, that Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, both pro-gay. They're both pro-gay. There's nothing we can really do about it. They're not going to change. They're not going to change much. They might be good on the transgender front.
Yeah.
We live in a secular society. They're running to be a secular leader. I understand. You're not going to get everything that you want. What I've said is that Donald Trump is the one that they're trying to throw in jail. Yeah. And it tells me that might mean he's more dangerous.
Yeah, no, I think that's correct. And, Trump is pro-gay in the sense that, and the DeSantis people love to put this picture around, someone wrote LGBT for Trump and on a flag, and they gave it to him and he holds it up. He's like, wow, look at that. You could write serial killers for Trump on a severed skull, and he would hold it up and be like, I don't know about that. It's just his ego, which maybe is a problem. But Trump is pro-gay in the sense that he's vaguely opposed to it, but doesn't really see the political utility of it. I mean, you can listen to his comments over the years on Howard Stern, other programs. He's homophobic. He doesn't, he doesn't want anything to do with that. DeSantis is pro-gay in the sense that he thinks it's good politics. I mean, this is the guy that sent Dave Rubin two onesies for his surrogate children that he kidnapped. And it's that's as pro-gay as you can get. I mean, yeah, Trump declared a global initiative to, support gay rights. It didn't really do anything. It's all, bad counsel telling him to do this. But the way I see it is exactly as you described, where it's look, I don't actually think that someone's going to come and save us. I don't even know if an American president can still really wield the executive branch and achieve sovereignty. But they're going after him because they want to really just beat out any sense of optimism that Americans have left. Because whether or not you like Trump, he does provide an opportunity for things to actually change. I mean, he reversed party orthodoxies on things like immigration, sovereignty, foreign policy, trade, and he did it single-handedly just by being a likable guy. And he's independent because, he has money. He doesn't need to get into bed with terrible people to be elected to office, which is what literally everybody else has to do. I mean, if you're a senator, a congressman, even a president, and you step out of line, they can pull your funding. They can have people move against you. And they had a lot of people move against Trump for what that's worth. But There's no one else.
How many
that
times
could do
has he
it.
been arraigned in the last 4 months? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like it's getting ridiculous. And to his credit, to add to that repertoire, the only reason Roe v. Wade got overturned is because of Donald Trump.
Yes.
He might as well have overturned Roe v. Wade. He might as well have hit that gavel because of his appointees that it was even made possible.
Yeah. And there's something I tried to, and I remember a lot of the people who thought that schizophrenic rapper Kanye West was going to be elected president didn't like when I said this, but it's true. The reason that I can kind of concede Trump on some of the socially conservative issues is because nationalism is what is going to breed the conditions necessary for social conservatism, not the other way around. Unfortunately, the world has fallen. You're never going to win an election on like abolishing gay marriage, getting rid of trans rights, things like that. You can win an election though on nationalist policies. Trump proved that. So say we win those elections, we get our guys in power. Now, all of a sudden, they're near the levers necessary to do that other stuff too. So there's a difference between what you're running on and what you actually intend to do. And I know for a fact the people who are in Trump's orbit, especially now, are very good on the issues, very smart guys, very based. And all the people that are in the DeSantis circle are women and homosexuals. Like it's just a fact. And that's why you look and you see how his online candidacy is run. It's like really catty and passive aggressive. And you're like, how could this happen? Oh, his comms team is staffed by women and homosexuals. It's like, oh, of course.
It's epitomized by exactly the dichotomy you drew at the beginning of how each of them showed that they were pro-gay. Trump just was handed something and he's like, oh, flag gay, LGBT for Trump. Meanwhile, DeSantis actively took a role in virtue signaling to show him, oh no, look at how much I don't hate gays. Here, Dave Rubin, take these wonderful onesies. It's great. And that is a difference in character that is noticeable, that does show that how he might respond in these situations where he has to put down the hammer. And we already know Donald Trump can put down the hammer. He did so in his administration. And he put down the hammer on abortion essentially as well. Now, there's one more question I want to have. I'm kind of looking further down the road here. Say when we're the old boomers that are, like, oh, this is what we need to do to save America. I actually see something brewing right now. There seems to be this underlying resentment for the sunken-eyed Coomer pornography-addicted man that's breeding among these younger generations. And it's all, I think, rooted in a noticeable trauma that almost every young American man is suffering from right now, and that's divorce. I do see a future for issues like banning pornography. I do see a future of issues like ending no-fault divorce. I think that there's a lot of trauma that a lot of people have, specifically in probably, I would say, the older millennial generation all the way up to, what is it, Generation Alpha or something it's called? I forget what it is, but whatever comes after Gen Z. Do you see like the future candidates that are running on a policy that is more like anti-porn, anti-LGBT, anti-divorce, and just essentially how do we rebuild the family?
Yeah, I think you're going to have to kind of eat around first with a lot of the other things that are really putting stress on people. And, I still have a buddy, and I spent hundreds of hours at this guy's house since I was like 12. And his parents recently got divorced for no obvious reason. And, my mom was, oh, well, you never know. And it's like, well, you kind of know. I mean, like, you can see cracks. And, I don't know what their situation is, but I was just kind of thinking about it with like, I asked, where did things maybe? And he told me, he's like, well, during COVID, that put a lot of stress on people. And I was thinking about that because, no-fault divorce laws do literally increase, like, not only the likelihood of divorce, but the likelihood of that being even considered an option in people's minds. But also, as everything else in society gets terrible, it does really put pressure on people's relationships. And if those aren't rock solid, cracks form. And it really is an evil thing because that's expected, obviously. I mean, that's the virtue and nobility of marriage. It's like, it's not going to be easy, but you stick to it anyways. But as society just continues to erode and crumble, it really puts a lot of pressure on people to where, the first idea is like, okay, let's just like get divorced.
Do you think that's you don't think the opposit's true? I've always, it's like the fact that as society cracks and crumbles, it actually forces people to be closer together. Let's say society collapsed, like, I don't know, like tomorrow or something like that. And, we're living in Fallout 3 or something, Fallout New Vegas or something like that. Women, what jobs can women actually do? I agree. I wish that would happen, by the way. But it's like this weird thing where it's like, we're collapsed in the sense that we're, denigrated and atomized and separated, but it's not collapsed enough to where we actually need each other. We still have our copium. That's
we've got like our entertainment, we've got our bread and circus, we've got our money. So it's like, I can be happy or whatever. So I almost wish it would be totally collapse, because then it would like revert back to what it should be. But yeah, I think you have to eliminate, using state power, all of the things that get into people's heads and like make them more, selfish, things like pornography, gay rights, no fault divorce, and also just like the economy. I mean, it really is basic, but like when people are more able to provide for themselves, there's less stress. I mean, one of the most often cited reasons for divorce is like money issues, which, women and credit cards, that's one thing, but it's true. I mean, during COVID, people's jobs are lost, destroyed by the state for no reason. It's like that causes a lot of problems. And, I do think that the state does have an obligation to minimize those problems, to give people leeway in their marriages to fight about other things. Yeah. But if the state is creating those problems, then it's like, it's not even fair. Like, you never had a chance. So.
Yeah, and there's a lot of truth to that too. I mean, our tax systems too is like extremely anti-family. Like, it actually incentivizes women to go get knocked up by a bunch of different guys to get more money from the government, as opposed to if they're married and have a bunch of kids, it's actually like a financial detriment. And if they're both working, guess what? Even more taxes coming into the government, more being taken out of your pockets. So I'm just going to ask this, because I ask this at the end of any interview. What else do you got to say? Is there anything else that I missed that I didn't ask that you want to talk about?
I have never seen such a comprehensive interview, both in terms of what I've participated in and witnessed third party. I think that to add anything else to this would just be like an insult to the quality that you achieved during the interview, I think.
I appreciate that. Hear that, Ronan?
Dude, that's some high compliments.
High compliments from John Doyle. Well, all right, guys. I think we're going to wrap it up on that note. And guys, you already know what you need to do. And I'm about to do the whole YouTube loud voice that John Doyle was talking about earlier. You need to subscribe to the channel on YouTube. You need to hit that notifications bell so you always know when we're dropping new content. And you need to follow us on X, Twitter, whatever the heck. Elon Musk, what are you doing, man? You're making this very hard for me. Also go on Threads, that thing that Mark Zuckerberg started that no one cares about anymore. You can follow us on there as well. And guys, with that said, that's all we got for this episode. God bless you.